This is Booking It to Financial Freedom, show number 21.
They really talk about how a lot of high achievers or people who try to be high achievers tend to focus on the how versus the who because they just can't let go of the control. You truly have to be vulnerable and realize you have an inherent ability to do certain things, but not everything. So he's basically just saying if you are constantly procrastinating on a task, especially if it's a repetitive task that it always takes you until the last minute to do it, or it's the last thing you want to do, you're probably not meant to do it.
Yeah, if you're dreading any kind of task or whatever, there's probably someone out there that will love doing it and is better at it than you are.
10x results or even 100x results can happen faster if you ask who, not how.
Welcome to Booking It to Financial Freedom, where we explore literature from some of the most successful experts in their field to help you build a blueprint for personal growth and financial freedom. Join us as we examine a new book every month and break down key concepts to help you get out of the rat race and on track to start building a life better than you ever imagined.
Hey everyone, I'm your host, Amanda Schneider, realtor and investor, and I'm here with my co-host and teammate, Jamie Booth. Hey, Jamie.
Hey, Amanda, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I am great. I'm enjoying the weather. It's been unusually rainy here in Colorado, but that's also a good thing. Everything's green. It's beautiful. It's warm now. So I'm excited to start diving into the summer activities.
Yeah, me too, for sure. What do you have planned for Memorial Day weekend?
We are actually going down to a reservoir here in Colorado with some friends. I'm going to camp for the weekend, and one of the friends has a boat, so we'll probably do a little sailing and all that good stuff. So excited to get out and start camping and stuff. Yeah.
When you camp, are you in a tent or?
So I have like a Jeep with like an overlanding setup. So the Jeep is kind of part of the package, but we ground tent. We just have a regular tent, family size tent right now, which my wife hates. It's glam camping for sure. I mean, big tent, king size blow up bed. It's a ridiculous setup right now, but got to try to meet the wife halfway in the middle because she's more of an RV type of person. Sure. But I like the fact that I can just take the Jeep, drive up into the mountains, and then here in Colorado, we're blessed with all the BLM land and the national forest. So you find a designated spot that's, on any random trail and you just stop and that's where you camp. It's amazing. It's definitely a cool aspect as far as freedom and exploring goes, where I come from Ohio. Unless you're on private property, you're on a pay site, There's no such thing as just driving hundreds of miles of BLM land and pitching your camp wherever is suitable, It's a pay to play kind of stuff for the most part, but
yeah, there's actually an app for people that don't know that you can BLM app that you can download that'll show you all the free sites.
And I use like mapping, so I'm a big nerd when it comes to stuff most overlanders are going to use some kind of mapping software, but I have overlays and all the maps downloaded on my phone and all this other stuff. So it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
It's a cool little hobby to have.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we're not doing anything quite that exciting, but we have a wedding to go to in New Mexico, and then my niece is graduating from high school in Nebraska. So we're actually doing just a lot of quick trips just to hit both of them.
Yeah, that's going to be kind of a hectic weekend.
Yeah, it is. And of course, it's the most expensive weekend of the year to travel. But as we were discussing, graduations only happen once. So we definitely got to be there.
Yeah, once in a lifetime thing.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Yeah. And then this last weekend, you and I and Colleen, our other teammate, went to the Angel Gala. So that was for Angels of America's Fallen.
It was a great time.
It was really fun. And I feel like we've talked about the organization before, but if people don't know it, basically they support the children of military and first responders that have died in action in the line of duty. And they support them with counseling if they need it, and then extracurricular activities until they're 19 years old, just to help them kind of have something to, I don't want to say fill that void, but, just get involved in something rather than be wrapped up in the grief of losing a parent. So it's a really amazing
it's an amazing cause, an amazing organization. That was the second gala that I've been to for that, and the last couple of years has been absolutely amazing. We should post their website in the show notes. So if anybody's interested in donating to a good cause, that's a great cause. And we actually have our own event coming up later this year for the same organization, Boot Scootin'.
For Angels,
For Angels, yeah. So we did it last year. It was a great time. We're looking to grow the event this year. We're hoping it's going to be even more successful and even more of a good time. I mean, it's great cause, good times.
Yeah,
so,
it'll be in October. I think it's somewhere around October 15th. I'd have to look at the exact date, but the middle of October on a Saturday. And it's at, I'm blanking on the Flying W.
Flying W,
Ranch.
yep.
Yeah, so it's really fun, and we usually have a live country band and probably have a silent auction. So we'll promote more of it if anyone's local and wants to come support.
Great food, great venue.
Yeah. Oh, the venue's awesome. Anyway, you want to go ahead and get into the book? We have got a new one. So we're starting Who Not How, which is just kind of a book that actually my husband read it, but it's been recommended to me by several people. So I wanted to incorporate it. I feel like our books up until now, a lot of it's just kind of been mindset, and some of it is a little bit of actionable item, but we also want to help people who are maybe already in the point where they are entrepreneurs starting their own business, and now maybe they're a little overwhelmed with everything they have going on. And this book definitely addresses how you can, help find a way to get that help that you need and realize what your priority is.
Well, I like the fact that you led in with most of the books that we've been talking about are mindset. I think you can really look at this one as a mindset thing too.
True.
To be aware of like how you can basically delegate tasks and all that stuff to use different techniques to grow your business. What kind of caught, and I hadn't heard about this book until we decided we were going to cover it. So it's actually kind of refreshing to cover a book that I haven't actually read before.
Yes, me too.
So it's kind of neat. And then what I've got out of this book and what I really like about it is you can clearly tell that it's written to be tailored towards like an entrepreneur who's got a small business or something like that and wants to grow. But a lot of the things that I've been seeing in the book is you can look at it from someone who hasn't even from an aspect that you haven't started yet. Because a lot of these questions that he goes over in the book that you have to ask yourself to grow can be definitely used to start. So if you have an idea, you want to start a business, instead of taking on all of the tasks that yourself, you just start asking, who can help you do certain things to get the business or whatever idea it is that you have off the ground.
Yes.
So that's what I like about that.
That is such a good point, because so many times, especially if you're a person who tends to be more of an idea person and you have a hard time actually executing all the great ideas you have, this is perfect for you. So many of us have great ideas, and then it's analysis paralysis, or we're just like, crap, I don't even know how to get that off the ground, or I don't know how to make a website, so I can't run a business. This book shows you that you shouldn't be asking, how can you do it? You should be asking right from the beginning, who can do this for me? So yeah, that's great. And basically the whole point of the book is that you can accomplish so much more than you ever thought possible by incorporating those people that can help you grow, increasing your time, your money, relationships, all of that, because it's truly freeing you up to figure out what you're best at. Yeah. And have others help you.
Well, it's like early on in the book, there's an example of a lady who, I think she was working for another law firm. She quit. She opens her own, right? In the first year, she's doing absolutely everything.
Yep.
All of the research, all of the emails, all the calls with clients, all that other stuff, like working 100-hour weeks, just killing herself. And in her mind, she was grinding. But she got to the point where she started hiring people to do certain aspects of that job. And she quickly realized that not only did that, help free her time, but she realized that all these people that she were hiring to do specific tasks were actually better at the task than she was, right? So I was able to step back, recognize that there are people out there who are probably better at something than you, and to utilize them in a way that you can concentrate on growing whatever it is you're trying to grow.
I think the biggest obstacle for people, and we will talk through this as we cover the book, is going to be the idea of spending money on somebody to do something for you.
There's another good example on that one later on.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's in the show notes, but it's later on in the chapters of the episode we're covering today.
Yeah, and he gives tons. I think every chapter he gives at least one or two, not personal, but examples of other people, how they've implemented this. But you really have to get over the idea of you don't have the money to do it, because you literally cannot grow your business unless you have people to help you with the things that they specialize in. And this is something that has been a big aha for me too, is because I'm a very type A personality. So I like to do everything first and then maybe hand it off. But one thing they talk about in the book is don't even waste your time learning something. So for example, if I want to, make a new website for our business or whatever, why would I teach myself coding and all of that when I can literally find someone who is an expert and they can do it perfectly from the beginning rather than me having to struggle through and then eventually having to train somebody to do it. It just makes no sense at all.
Yeah, we'll cover it later on in this book as well. But one of the things I really liked that was in it was if you have the money to solve a problem, then you don't have a problem.
I
right?
feel like you said that in the last episode.
I may have.
Didn't you? Yeah, when we were covering the one thing. And so then when I read this, I was like, Jamie said that exact phrase.
It's always cool when you say something and then you find it in literature like, oh,
yeah.
I had a decent thought that it actually landed in someone else's book.
Yeah, well, and it just shows what we were talking about last time, that it's just reoccurring themes of successful people.
Yeah. And I want to say one other thing before we start kind of deep diving the book. I'm listening to the audio. So anybody out there who's interested in covering the book on the audio, I like the fact that the audio one, so we have the narrator who's reading the book, and then he does like a sit down interview with the author at the end of each chapter and kind of, I don't know, pulls all the ideas together through his conversation. So it's pretty neat to hear all the facts and then have him elaborate on each chapter. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and something I want to clarify about that, because I'm also listening to the audio. So Dan, who he interviews at the end of each, is not actually the actual author, because Dan is the founder of Strategic Coaching.
Right.
And he is the one that came up with the principle, who, not how. And so when this idea came to write a book, he's like, well, I'm not an author. I'm not going to write this book. So he asked the author, whose name I'm currently blanking on, but he asked the author to write this book basically based on his principles, because again, who, not how, this guy is an author. So he sat down with Dan, interviewed him, got all this, but I just wanted to clarify that because it goes exactly with the principle of the book of this guy wasn't going to figure out how to be an author.
Yep. So he hired a team.
Yes. Yeah. It's great. So one of the examples that they give in the very beginning, which I love, and again, I'm not the hugest sports fanatic or anything, but obviously everyone knows who Michael Jordan is. And they give an example of Michael Jordan, which I just think is great, because we all know that he's one of the best, if not the best basketball player in history, if not one of the best athletes of all times. And they were talking about when he first began, like he was still really great, but the Bulls just weren't winning championships. Like they were constantly they weren't even making it to the playoffs. And they basically couldn't figure out why. They had this extraordinary player. And long story short is they found out that he needed support. He can't do it on his own. He needed more who's. And so they brought in like Pippen, who helped kind of sharpen his skills, made Jordan more of a team player. They brought in a new coach, Phil Jackson, and he started to implement some more team-based, because from, I was pretty young at that time, so I didn't watch a lot of sports, but
me and my grandfather, we were really into basketball during this time period.
So I
watched so many of those games, highlights that you see of Jordan. I would watched it when it happened back in the day.
Yeah,
I love it. This has been talked about many times before about how successful that Chicago Bulls run was in the 90s, and it was a lot of it. Yeah, obviously Michael Jordan was the spearhead of that effort, but they surrounded him with great team talent and all that stuff. So once he went from more of an individual effort to a whole team concept, that's when they completely just took over the scene. And it goes to show like how powerful true teamwork is, right? Instead of trying to take everything on yourself, which was Jordan before they built the team around him, and then once they built the team, their success was like almost unparalleled. So,
and I think that's a point to keep in mind with this book too. It's not about who can do the work for me. It's about who can help me in every aspect of my life, whether that's growing as a person, getting in shape, growing mentally, support, etc. It's the who's in all aspects of your life.
Yeah. Another thing I like about this book from like a leadership standpoint, there's a lot of leadership in it. And what being retired military, obviously had my fair share of that. And one of the things that kind of the key concept of this was like finding who can do that. And as in the military, it was all about being able to delegate to the right person. So I kind of look at it from that concept as far as delegation, because a lot of leaders or business owners or whatever, they're terrified to delegate tasks out to people because they want it to be done a particular way or whatever. So I see a lot of parallels for that concept as well, which
Absolutely. Yeah, the military is specifically designed for delegation. That's why we have different ranks and et cetera. But if you've never been in the military, never been in that environment, this might be kind of foreign to you.
Yeah, and there's still high-level leaders in the military who try to do it all themselves. They just you can't do it that way, man.
Yeah, and that's a great transition because they really talk about how a lot of high achievers or people who try to be high achievers tend to focus on the how versus the who because they just can't let go of the control. And I would say I see some of myself in that as well. But you truly have to be vulnerable and realize, as to your point with the lawyer, that a lot of times people are a lot better at the things you're trying to do. You have an inherent ability to do certain things, but not everything. And so rely on those people whose skill set.
Absolutely. It's about being a good leader, a good, manager or whatever, being able to step back and look around at the people who are surrounding you and find their strengths and their weaknesses, right? And utilizing them to the best of their ability.
Yep. And one of the things, I don't know if we talked about it yet or if you and I were talking about it off camera, but we were talking about procrastination, which is...
We haven't talked about it in the show yet.
Okay. Which was a huge aha for both of us. Yeah. And I might be I might be doing this a little bit early according to our show notes, but basically if you are someone who's constantly procrastinating about a task, it's actually a nugget of wisdom telling you
actually, when they were talking about it in the book, I had a hard time wrapping my brain around what they were saying for the first few times until I heard him really kind of elaborate at the end of that particular chapter. I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense. It's crazy. I had never thought about procrastination in that manner at all. It never would have crossed my mind.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant that he came to that kind of insight. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. So he's basically just saying if you are constantly procrastinating on a task, especially if it's a repetitive task that it always takes you until the last minute to do it, or it's the last thing you want to do, you're probably not meant to do it. And you and I were chatting that part of our, job is obviously being on social media and having a presence. And that's kind of my role on the team is to do that. And it's hard for me because it's not my favorite thing to do. And reading this, I realized, why am I struggling so much? Like, why don't I just get someone who loves being on social media, is really good at writing content to do this rather than, it's like pulling teeth for me to do it. I never look forward to it. And I often do other tasks first and then I run out of time. So thinking to yourself about all of those things that you constantly procrastinate on, and those are your answers to who your first who's need to be.
Right. Yeah. If you're dreading any kind of task or whatever, there's probably someone out there that will love doing it and is better at it than you are.
Yep.
I love it. And it's just, it was, like I said, just kind of a hard concept to digest there at first. But then I was like, you know what? That's, when you're procrastinating, that's your in it to, subconscious telling you like, you're not meant to be doing that.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about it, there's several things that I wake up in the morning wanting to do. Like, if I could choose anything, this is the thing I would do. And those are obviously the inherent skills that you have if something excites you. But if it's something that you dread, not meant to do it. Let's talk a little bit about, so I kind of already introduced it. So Dan Sullivan, he's the co-founder of Strategic Coaching. So if anyone is an entrepreneur and they want a little bit more coaching, I definitely recommend checking out his website, which I will link. He's got a lot of free resources, some that they talk about in the book, but he specifically coaches entrepreneurs. He's coached tens of thousands of the best entrepreneurs to help them implement this process. And so he basically met the author and they came up with this idea to write a book. But again, he's not an author. Dan isn't. So he had the author do it for him. And sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Was it Benjamin? We'll have to cut this part out, but is Benjamin the name of the author? Yes, it must have been. Benjamin couldn't get the publisher to take the book.
And with Dr. whatever his name.
Yeah, Dr. Benjamin is the author. Okay, cool. I'll get back in. Sorry, I should have looked that up before we started talking. So basically, Benjamin and Dan work together on this. Benjamin is the author, and he's written several books before this. But what's funny is that when he came up with this idea, he couldn't get his publisher to take him serious. And so throughout the year that he had this idea, Benjamin kept talking to his publisher about it. And they're like, no, let's concentrate on this other idea you have, et cetera. And so then the light bulb came on to Benjamin of, I need a who. Like, if I can't get this publisher to publish this book for me, then I need somebody who will. And so he has connections with Tucker Max, which I'm sure a lot of people know that name because he's written several books about just like his sexual escapades. Have you ever read any of his books?
No, I
They're
haven't.
crazy. But so a lot of people will probably recognize that name. But anyway, he's very connected in the publishing world. So just by expressing this to Tucker Max, he found a publisher for him like that day, found the exact who, and got things rolling. So again, whenever you're facing an obstacle, just ask yourself, who can help you do this, not how I can do it. So
Yeah, it's such a great question. It's almost like the focusing question from the one thing.
Yes.
It's about asking it's just so powerful when you ask the right questions as opposed to the wrong questions, or just reframing the question in itself.
Yes.
Right. We talked about that in the one thing, but it continues to resonate and show true is like how you talk to yourself, how you ask the questions, how you frame that. That means everything when it's meant to be outcome oriented, right? So,
and there's a worksheet, we'll talk about it a little bit later, that Dan Sullivan has. It's a 1-page worksheet that helps you focus, just like the one thing, asking you those questions. And I love bringing that up because I think those can really work in tandem, because by asking yourself, who can do this, help you with this, that takes stuff off your plate to concentrate on the one thing that you are good at. And the thing that
it ties together brilliantly.
Yep. And it basically, it's transformative. If you let yourself constantly ask that question and you're asking that question from the beginning, it can take your goals to a whole nother level that you never thought you could get to.
That's why I think this concept is brilliant for people who already have a business or are trying to start a business as well, because it's all about surrounding yourself with the right people.
One thing I liked in here, they told a little story of Kobe Bryant he says that when he's out on the basketball court, he's playing chess when everyone else is playing checkers. And that's exactly the way to think about growth and utilizing that who question. Is you want to be a step above everyone else that's in your field. And that's how you take that next step, is asking who, not how. So love it. So he breaks the book up into different parts. I think is it 4 total parts. So we're going to cover part 1 in this episode, which is a pretty big part and a really important one, because the whole focus of part 1 is freedom of time. So he shows you that it's really not giving more time that's going to make you successful. It's how you use that time, concentrating on
the things that you're good at.
Yep, the one thing, and then having other people do the rest of it that are good at those things. So
yeah, and there's tons of examples in this part about how people achieve that. I think it was really, and I've thought about this stuff a lot, and there were still some examples in there. I was like, you know what, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Like I think it was in this section where he was talking about the guy who, was it him or someone else, who realized how valuable their time was as far as commuting. So they stopped driving altogether. Yeah, he stopped driving altogether and just started Ubering to all his business meetings and stuff. And he said it freed up about 90 minutes of his time each day that he could just focus on the meetings. So instead of being stressed out or all that good stuff going into a meeting, he came in and was able to hit home runs because he was able to take that time to focus on what was most important, which was like the next sales meeting or whatever it was.
And I'm sure if you talk to him, the money that he spends on Ubers or a private driver is 1,000% worth it.
Oh yeah,
he
was saying like $50 a day for Uber or whatever, when he was literally making like $100,000 decisions in the meetings. So yeah, it was a drop in the bucket as far as what the outcome was. Compared to him not being able to use that time to prep.
Yeah, and especially feeling stressed and unprepared. Yeah. So I think one thing for people to understand is we already have a lot of who's in our life. So if you're listening to this or reading the book and thinking, I can't afford who's in my life, you have to think about all the who's you already have. So you've got somebody that delivers your mail. You've got, Amazon delivers packages and groceries and stuff to us.
You got your family. You have the dentist. You have I love the way that he breaks it down. Is like, you already have tons of who's in your life, and you are a who to someone else.
Yes.
To multiple people, like everybody in your life, pretty much. You have somehow you have this facet of their life. You're their who.
Yes, and that's an important component of this book too. Is that it's not just what can everyone else do for me, but who can I be a who too as well, because it's really a symbiotic relationship where somebody is a who for you and you're a who for them in a different area, to help them as well.
Yeah. At the end of the day, your value is based on the value you bring to other people. Right. So yes. Amazon, it's whatever it's worth now, which, insane amount of money.
Billions.
It's worth that because that's the level of product that they produce, and you on an individual level is the same thing.
Yeah, that's a great point. One of the biggest things is just avoiding the how trap, because it just limits your own knowledge and capabilities. So, it requires you to think, how can I do this? How can I find more time to do this? How can I learn a new skill set, et cetera. And we're going to talk about it a little bit down the line too, but it's that like multitasking, trying to do more than one thing, but also just overloading your brain with too many things at once. So too many decisions.
Fatigue.
Yes. And so
that's what they call it.
Yes. And this was another reoccurring theme in here that was in the last book that I was just like, yes, that's exactly it. Because if you want to be a high achiever, you can only utilize so many brain cells in a day. So you should not be making decisions on smaller things that you don't even have the skill set for. So he does talk about too that the first who should always be you. So before you're looking for your other who's, you have to make sure that you're also guarding your own time. Another theme in the one thing is, scheduling your rest and relaxation first and making sure you do that so that you can be your best mental and physical self to find these who's in your life. So, and a neat stat here was that he said only 16% of creative insight happens at work. So it's really important that we take that time to get away from work. I think Dan Sullivan said he actually takes 3 months out of every year, whether that's consecutive, I don't know, but spends it with his family and completely away from work, because he has brought into his life the who's that he completely trusts that can run a business without him having to be there. Yeah.
So. There's an example in the book where I think it was him. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
But he literally found the who finds the who's for him, right? So he's got this assistant or whatever who's just absolutely brilliant at finding the right people for whatever business aspect he has, and he trusts that person to find the right talent to do the job. So he's taking it to a whole different level of finding who's. He's got a who that finds who's.
Yes, I love that example actually, because again, being kind of the type A personality that I am, I can't imagine giving up the power or whatever to have somebody hire somebody for me. But if I'm not good at hiring and I don't even necessarily know what I'm hiring for, I don't know the ins and outs of social media, for example, you want somebody who understands that to hire somebody for that position. So that was kind of mind blowing for me to take it to that level.
Yeah. There was another example where he hired someone or someone in the book had hired someone to actually just monitor his email and reply and do all the, I would be terrified.
I know.
Like you're trying to have business, client relationship and stuff like that, but you have somebody actually writing all your emails. It would take me a while to get past that. But,
it's a lot of trust, and I'm sure it doesn't happen as easily maybe as it's presented in the book. They talk about, we found this person and this person was amazing, but they don't talk about maybe how many who's they had to go through before they found that person. But I think part of it really is asking yourself some of those focusing questions, though, of what that person really needs to look like, so that when they come into your life or when you're doing interviews for that person, they meet all the criteria that you need them to meet. So.
Yeah, and then one of the other aspects he kind of covers in this, and from a leadership or kind of a corporate view, when you have a very loud, clear vision as far as what you're trying to accomplish, a lot of times those people will gravitate towards that cause. So sometimes you don't have to headhunt, particular talent. It'll find you.
You have to get
because
specific.
Because your mission is so specific and I don't know, I guess big. Yeah. So it'll just pull people into it.
No, that's such a good point. I think that's probably almost a better way to find someone for sure. Another thing I really liked is he talks about how who's can actually help you expand as a person. And the author gives the example of they have 3 foster children, and he just talks about.
That was a great example.
Yeah. How the children,
what their children's lives were like before
him.
Yeah.
But just then the environment they were able to provide them, safety, security, tutors, they have a spiritual life for them. They take them to church, et cetera, and that how
Extended family that would take them on trips, that kind of stuff.
And just that those children were able to grow because of the who's surrounding.
Well, it just goes back to the principle that we've talked about multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Your success is generally tied to the closest 5 friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly the same concept. These children were, blessed and were able to be pulled into his home, and they're, by being surrounded by a completely different amount of, type of people, their life projection completely changed.
Yes. They now see what's possible, which is what a good who does for you. Is it expands your whole world to even see what's possible. And you take that to the next level with, businesses and stuff. It can expand your whole vision of what's possible, because obviously things are very limited when you're only relying on yourself to do everything. But when you've got who's, there's no limit to how your business can grow. So, here's the section on procrastination, which we already talked about a little bit. Such a good section though. But I do love, because he talks about the impact filter, which, again, I'll link to the website where you can download a lot of this stuff. But if you do have the book, it's also in there. But he has some just very specific questions in here that should really help you define what help you need, and then who can help you with that. So just, again, basic stuff, but what is it you want to accomplish, and what's your motivation for accomplishing it? So really defining your purpose. And then what difference will this make, and what impact will this have, on your life, on your business, whatever that focusing question is. And then what does that completed project actually look like? What's the payoff if you can get this project up and running and completed? And then your success criteria, what specific results might be true for this project to be a success? So, he's got 8 different spots here, but one thing I really liked from one of the examples he used was, I can't even remember what exact story it was, but the guy talks about how he defines success for himself. Mm-hmm. So some of it was, I'm able to wear whatever I want for the day. Yep. I wake up and I can spend my day however I want. Like, there was several different things that he listed as his success
does my
criteria.
passive income, exceed my expenses, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
It was like 10 questions, and they were all very good.
So good. And it's going to be different for everyone, but truly digging down to that level of what, if you had a perfect day, what does that look like for you? And then understanding how to create your success to achieve those days that that is your perfect day. And then the last couple of questions is what's possible if you do take action? So this is your best self. So if you would take this action, what does that look like? And what are the risks if you don't take this action? Which I love this question, because a lot of times the risks end up being not having a life of fulfillment,
right.
Getting to the end of your time on earth and having regrets and asking, what more could I have done with my time?
Yeah,
my family.
I'm trying to remember the quote that's in there that really was strong. I meant to write it down, but it was basically if you waste just 1 hour of your life, you're arrogant, and
Wow.
Yeah. You're arrogant to think that you just have an infinite amount of time.
Yeah.
So by procrastinating and sitting around and doing nothing, you're just squandering away what limited life you actually have.
Yeah.
So what you do now, the actions you take now, directly impact your future life.
Future self. Absolutely. And again, who's are not limited to certain areas of your life. They can be in any area where you're struggling. And he gives an example of there was a guy who wanted to eat better, that he's a very successful person, but he just struggled to eat better because he doesn't have the time to make himself meals or his family meals. They didn't have time to sit down together. And he literally just ended up hiring a personal chef.
Yeah.
I understand, again, that's not in everyone's budget, but figuring out, like, there's plenty of places even here in Colorado Springs that make prepared meals that you can get that are healthy, etc. So any area of your life that you're struggling with, asking who can help with that area. So, and again, it makes your potential virtually limitless if you ask that question. He talks about, 10x results or even 100x results can happen faster if you ask who, not how. Mm-hmm. And I love, too, the idea of just being able to free up time by asking who, not how, because that's, I've talked about it on the podcast before. That's one of my biggest struggles is I constantly feel overwhelmed. And I feel like when I have to make a decision for the day of, can I go play tennis or should I work on this thing for work? It's almost always, work, so yourself kind of becomes last, but by asking some of these questions and offloading, you become a better person mentally and physically.
I think everybody would agree that, having more time to do the things that you want to do is a huge indication of success. And, even going back to when I was, in my early days of trying to make it to where I am now, right? Listen to Bigger Pockets and all that stuff. And it was, you always heard, like hire a gardener so you have more time to concentrate on the things that are more important in your life, whether that be your 80-20 production stuff that you have, your most important task that you have to do for that day, or more time for your family, more time for adventure or whatever. It all comes down to really the most, time. Time is money.
Yeah.
That is true. There's no way to get around it. Time is money. So the more time you have doing the most productive or, valuable things that yield results for you and your business, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and it just completes the whole circle of what we've talked about before, as well as fulfillment too. So if you are taking those tasks away that you're not good at, therefore helping you produce more money, you actually have to work less. Now you're spending more valuable time with your family and the people you love and doing the things you love, and you become more fulfilled. That's actually the ultimate goal, is that fulfillment. Again, like we talked about, not the actual number, not the money, but the fulfillment. But the money helps you reach that freedom to have the fulfillment.
Yeah, there was, in the book, they talk about the guy he had a gardener, he had a cook, he had a, oh my God, almost every aspect of his life, he probably, what I think he even says, he's got like basically a team of like 50 people who take care of like almost every aspect of his life.
Yeah.
It was pretty crazy to think about, how good that would be, really. Anything but like, I don't like to garden, I got a gardener. I don't like to clean, I got a cleaner.
Yeah.
All of that stuff.
Yeah. And I personally have, not to that degree, but I've personally, as I've gotten more successful and busier, tried to implement some of that stuff. I mean, we've had somebody clean our house now for probably 4 or 5 years. And again, in the beginning, you're like, oh, do I want to spend a couple $100s every month to have my house cleaned? But you do. Believe me, you never miss that money. And the feeling of coming home to a clean house and not having to spend your weekends, your couple days off from work, or in our case, sometimes we don't even get days off. Like, it's weeks until we get days off. I can't imagine having to worry about that as well. The next thing I'd like to do is hire somebody to do my laundry, but I'm not there yet.
You just need a full-on maid.
Right?
Yeah.
Those are just the things I don't enjoy. Some people love that, and it's almost like relaxing for them. But I would rather be out like working in my garden or, playing tennis or hiking. Those just aren't things that relax
doing the
me.
things that relax you or that you really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
There was another example where I think it was, I don't know who they were talking about, but he had a person to like reset his condo or whatever it was.
Yes, that's a great example.
So like on one particular day, this person would come in, completely clean the place,
stock it with food,
stock all the refrigerator with food, do all this thing, and just completely be able to reset the home every week, and then have a great start or whatever. Yeah, just completely de-stresses the whole situation. It's pretty cool.
Something I've started to do, which I haven't been super consistent with because it does get a little bit expensive, but Instacart, if anyone's used that, it's just you can order your groceries and have them delivered to you. They mark up the prices from what they are in the store, plus you have to pay a fee to have it delivered. So sometimes I feel like I can't justify it, especially if I just have a few things. But the busy weeks that, I have used that because I've got so much going on, it's amazing because then I'm eating much healthier because I've got fruits and vegetables that have been delivered to my house, etc. And, I've never done the cost comparison, but say it takes $20, $25 more, even, $50. It's probably worth the time that it would take me to drive to the store, shop for 30 minutes to an hour, come back. My time is worth more than $25 an hour. So
like in the last book that we covered, we talked about discipline and willpower. So that's a key factor there. So like, you might be paying $25 extra to have your groceries delivered, but what happens when that grocery is not not there to cook? Are you gonna give in to fast food, right? Yeah, that's it's
great.
I know we're guilty of that at my house. It's like, oh, well, what are we gonna cook for dinner? I don't know. What do we got? Nothing. All right, let's go get a pizza or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect example of where that even though you're paying a little bit more for the service, it's probably worth it in the long run.
Yeah. Well, especially for me, because I really, at the end of a busy day, I hate going to a place that's busy with a bunch of people. It's the last thing as an introvert that I want is to be around
Yeah,
people.
exactly.
So,
your willpower is shot at that point, right?
Yeah. Okay, so another tool that we'll kind of end it with this, but another tool that they introduce in the book is a process that Dan calls the moving future. And he says that you should do this every 90 days. So basically you reflect back on what you've accomplished over the past 90 days. And again, there is a form for this if you're somebody who is visual and likes to write these kind of things out. But looking back over the last quarter and just asking, what are you most proud of what you've achieved? So that's the first question you ask. And then what are the current areas of focus and progress that make you the most confident? And then looking ahead at the next quarter, what are new developments, projects, or goals giving you the greatest sense of excitement? So what I love about this is you're identifying all of your wins and you're really building up your confidence, because that's one thing we didn't necessarily talk about, but by doing a lot of this, it builds your confidence and your own sense of your self-worth and ability by being able to ask for help and having people achieve and help you get closer to your goals. That truly helps your own self-confidence. So asking those questions.
Yeah, and I like the way in the book he kind of breaks down why do we think on a quarterly basis? Like, is there more to it? All that other stuff. So our economy, the U.S. economy, Canada, Britain, they all base their economic goals on a quarterly basis. Same with a lot of organizations or all the other stuff. So he kept asking, why 90 days? Why this quarterly concept? And basically it boiled down to being able to refocus on a regular basis.
Yes.
So, we get our economic report at the end of the 90 days and you evaluate it or whatever it is, your organizational goals. You're like, okay, we did this. Now we need to set a new goal, because if it's too long of a period, you lose sight and you lose focus. You get less excited about achieving those goals. To be able to do like a quarterly reset, that's kind of like the optimal time frame for a lot of these things to be done.
Yeah.
What else was I going to say? I don't know. It's just basically a refresh so you can stay excited. Oh, the other one was like, we tend to focus on all the things that fail. So being able to refresh everything on a quarterly basis, sit down and ask yourself the question, what did we do right? And you can see your progress. So you focus on the progress as opposed to all of the things that went wrong. And then you kind of just reset mentally on the next 90-day target, whatever that may be.
Yeah, I like that. It goes along kind of with the one thing too of setting your, yearly, quarterly, monthly, daily goals, like just constantly reassessing, but also recognizing the successes in your life. I think that's a big thing that a lot of people miss is they've got these high goals and they're looking at the bigger picture and saying, well, I haven't achieved this goal yet, but you have to think about all the small things that you've achieved on your way to your goal and recognizing that and then refocusing on the things that haven't been done.
Yeah, we have one of the things we learned in military leadership is the fallacy of brevity, right? So we tend to focus on what is the most current failure or whatever, as opposed to the overall picture, as the organization moves for closer to its goal or success. So you got to kind of step back and refresh yourself and not get caught up in all of the things that went wrong yesterday or this morning or this week. Focus on the big picture.
Yeah, and to use a military terminology, it's like an AAR, an after-action review, where you identify first everything that was successful, and then you talk about the things that could have been better and improved for next time.
And improve the process.
Yeah. So once you've kind of done this and you've reevaluated and then you've talked about, what are your goals then for the next 90 days or in the future, then your next question is, who can help me accomplish this? It isn't how can I accomplish it? Who can help me accomplish it? And that's how you use the 90-day process.
Mm-hmm.
So I would challenge everyone to add at least one who to your goals in the next 90 days in whatever area of life you choose. So, by adding a who, think of one thing that you really need help with and then who can help you with that. And that's really going to help you with the commitment to your goals and just your overall quality of life. So,
yeah. Absolutely. It's all about creating more time for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look back and what do you really hate to do or what's really taking a lot of your time? And trying to find the right person to take care of that for you, and hopefully by doing so, freeing up more time for yourself to be more successful or grow or go get more hikes in or whatever your goal is.
And it doesn't always have to be somebody that you have to pay. I mean, and a lot of times it is, but you have to think outside the box. Is there a family member that can maybe take on an additional responsibility to help take something off your plate? You know, is there a friend? Can you trade with somebody? Is there something that somebody else needs that you're better at, et cetera?
Yeah. And then, you know, another way to think about it is like, again, any task out there that you don't particularly like to do, like you may hate gardening or mowing your lawn. There's someone out there who probably absolutely loves doing that. Well, of course there is. You know, there's tons of green thumbs out there, but you know, you don't have to feel guilty about trying to delegate a certain task out because you don't like it. There are people out there who love doing it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And then figuring out how you can use that freed up time to help you grow to your success. So the point isn't, oh, I'm going to have someone clean my house and mow my lawn and stuff so that I can watch 3 more hours of TV a day. How can I
the whole point is to grow
exactly.
yourself successfully, you know,
what
personally
can I do with
and
those 3 hours.
Yeah, financially.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, I think that's about it, unless you have anything else to add for this episode.
No, just, you know, I'm looking forward to covering the rest of the book. It's actually, you know, there's some simple questions in here, but they are definitely, if you think about it from the angle that the author is bringing it to you, is just, it completely can shift the way you think, especially from a business standpoint. So,
yep, agree.
Yeah, so I'm hoping everybody continues to listen and as we cover the rest of the book.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. You want to take us out?
Sure. Yeah. As always, we really appreciate all of our viewers and everybody who's listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and watching us on YouTube. So if you're enjoying the content that we're bringing to you, please go ahead and give us a like, share, subscribe, leave us comments on YouTube if you're watching us on that platform. Again, we appreciate everybody, and we hope that you continue to follow us along on this journey as we cover all these brilliant books.
Yeah, definitely help us grow just by sharing however you can.
Yeah, for sure. It really helps us out a lot, and we really want to continue to grow the channel and doing what we're doing. We hope we're bringing value to everybody. So if we are, please help us out.
Yeah, sounds good. Talk to you guys next time.